Are you ready?
No, but here we go.
Here we go. Love it.
About 2 years ago, I witnessed one of my customers go into anaphylactic shock.
So if Perplexity decides to build for academic researchers, do they just eat you alive?
Perhaps.
Katerina is an AI real estate agent.
It just means nothing to me.
It won't hurt my feelings. I don't care. It's fine.
So maybe I'm just on one today. With a round of applause, let's welcome the next founder up. All right, what's your name?
Hi, my name is Gural.
Gural.
Yes, and I'm the co-founder of RapidReview.
You're going to have a minute to pitch.
RapidReview?
That's right, RapidReview.
You're going to have a minute to pitch and get some feedback. Are you ready?
No, but here we go.
Here we go. Love it. What are you building?
So at RapidReview, we build machine learning pipelines to structurize documents. Specifically, we focus on academia, so research papers. And, we hold a firm belief that there's a wealth of information and data contained within all the research papers out there. And there's a couple million of them getting published every year. And, if we're able to unlock all the wealth of information, then we can accelerate the process of innovation and further research. Specifically, we build a platform for people who need to conduct very large-scale reviews. So think like thousands of papers or tens of thousands of papers, and we help them make it happen in usually if they would take them a year or so to conclude that review project, we help them do that in 3 months or less. So,
all right, under a minute.
Thank you.
So I'm a big fan of specifics. So when you say people, who are the people?
Yes. Who is actually using our platform? So at this stage, because
it's more who has this problem as opposed to who's using the product.
Absolutely. And to answer your question, at this time, we are trying to build trust with the research community. So for now, we're focused on research teams, so in academia, that conduct large-scale, so systematic reviews, where it's...
In what field?
Our most interest, we're not field-specific, but the most interest is coming from biomedicine. So currently, we're partnered with a research institution, and we're running a few teams, so 5 teams are running pilots on our platform. And, at this stage, our key target is to build that trusting relationship with the research community because, using AI and machine learning during a research process, it's still something that people are getting used to. So that's our task for now.
So just kind of first piece of feedback based on how you presented it, I would be more specific because actually in my head, I saw a company a few years ago was kind of doing something in the clinical trial, there's a lot of information for cancer patients specifically that, time is of the essence and you need to be on top of any promising incremental trial or any sort of new research that's coming out that could help those patients. So reading through that kind of information was right. Exactly what was going through my head when you were talking, because I was like, this could be a really urgent application for something like this. But when you described it, it was so general that really didn't create that sort of, compelling application. So I would encourage you, especially because your first use case or your first kind of audience is in the bio space. Yeah. I would definitely lean into that. That would be kind of my first piece of advice.
By that, do you mean providing an example of someone who is having that urgent problem? Is that what you're...
Well, I would even say we are starting with, not just say all the academic research out there, because that just means nothing to me, to be honest. It could be anything and everything. I don't know if it's related to specific, it could be related to specific technical products. It could be obviously medical. It could be something else. It could be just philosophy. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of research that probably happens.
It sounds like the way it would sound is you'd say something like, what you have to understand about academic, I'm not an academic, so I've never been an academic. What you have to understand about academic research is it'll typically be 9 PhDs will spend 4 years doing a lot of intake of data, preliminary papers, digestion of other people's papers, blah, blah, blah. And in this process, 12,000 documents is the average a team of 9, I'm making this up, 9 PhDs will have to digest, which takes them a lot of time. They miss a lot of information. They're not comprehensive and thorough. And that's how you set up the problem. Well, I want to, that also touches maybe something that I I shared, we have a Venn diagram. The reason I want to hear more details is because I still cannot imagine what this product is. I think I can, but I'm like, is this not just ChatGPT or like a call to OpenAI APIs, right? Like, so I think that starts to cover both.
I think, yeah, that's to me, that's like the next layer. But for me, it's even like, who cares about this, right? Who needs this information so urgently? Because academics, to my knowledge, they just work on their own time. They publish research, like there's no urgency there. So when you introduce maybe a life-threatening disease or somebody, sitting around the table in North America, not knowing what's happening in Europe or in Asia or like some other like critical information that needs to be available as soon as possible to some.
Or you're replacing a hire. Maybe academics need to hire two undergrads.
That's another. Maybe that's a different direction. But I think setting that up would help you make the business case for what you're trying to do. And then, to me, urgency always means that someone's willing to engage with you faster. Someone's willing to buy your product faster. Whether you're early or not, like it's always important to think about that urgency. And so to me, like an industry example, and then you can go into the kind of the next level of this. It's like typically what happens is all these people are sitting around the world, doing their own thing. Nobody is necessarily communicating, and they're all working on timelines, and critical information is getting lost. In this case, it could be helpful to someone's surviving versus not surviving,
Surviving is a great example. By the way, can I just say, your example is like almost on the money. Like,
great.
Not
all the
4
numbers
years.
Wrong.
So it's like 6 researchers, 1.5 years, but you're right there. You're right there. And you guys coming up with so many different industries and examples does tell me that, hey, I didn't do a good job of delivering, hey, specifically who are we starting with and why this is important.
By the way, though, I want to ask you a question here. Before you answer that, let's get to the product. I actually agree with her that in a pitch, hers comes first, like industry, problem, business, and then you get into the product. But now that we're building from the bottoms up, I want to understand the product a little bit more because I think that'll give me more information to understand the industry stuff. So what is it literally?
So literally, it is a pipeline of machine learning models.
Your own
solutions.
models?
Yes.
Large language models?
So it's a combination. So sometimes in the pipeline, there is a call to a large language model provider.
Okay, it's multimodal.
But but however, it is heavily skewed towards.
This is a pipeline. Are you saying it's like a
multiple
workflow?
Multiple models working together.
Is it something that an individual is going to set up that workflow on their own?
No, absolutely not. This is what we do in the background, but it is important because what we do is...
It's not a pipeline, just so you understand. You have a pipeline to achieve an effect.
Fair. Okay.
And again, I'm a product guy and I'm a in venture. When you say the word pipeline and I go, okay, great, someone's going to get to mess with the pipeline. No, not in this case. Okay, great. So then I'm going to give you 10,000 research papers.
Kind of. So yes, you give me, you generate that output from Google Scholar or, a librarian who generates that output of matches. Give me 10,000 things in a CSV document. You upload to our platform. We rank them, we order them, we tell you which ones to read.
Based on my queries?
Based on your research question and keywords.
One question or many questions?
So usually projects, currently.
Name an example project.
There's a research question that you're trying to answer.
Give an example research question.
What are the biomarkers that lead to cardiac arrest most often?
And when I ask this query, how fast am I getting a response?
So our throughput is pretty high. Well, first thing we do is we rank them, and within 10 seconds we will get your 10,000 papers.
The reason I asked that question, by the way, is not because I actually care how fast your response is. I think I'm realizing you're like a chat bot. You're a dashboard.
We don't have chat.
You're a dashboard where I get an answer. When you started your pitch, I imagined you were a technical product that researchers would use, again, in a platform and a pipeline to decide how to ingest their and other people's documents. Now it's like an answer engine of a kind. You're more like Perplexity.
By the way, is this, the example you gave with the question, that's not like a new thing. There's like dozens, if not hundreds of markers that probably are well known to lead or could be ranked. Is the goal to uncover something new that in the research body out there that hasn't been flagged before, or is this just a summary of everything that's out there?
So that's the answer that we will come up with, a little bit down the line. And I say this because for now, we're very laser focused on a specific application of systematic reviews, where there is a system of how you have to do these reviews. And for that application, what we do is we tell you, hey, you should, out of the 10,000 papers that you've given me, you should read these, 500 or 50. And they
This is
will
an
make
answer
it to
engine,
your...
correct? This is Perplexity.
No.
This is a verticalized Perplexity.
I don't use Perplexity. No, that's a joke.
This is
no, I do use.
Tell me how it's
not that.
different.
So it is going to tell you, hey, which ones you read. Yes, kind of like that. But then when you go into the later stages, it is also going to let you extract information and data from each paper so that you can make your conclusions.
Okay. Perplexity decides to approach this one day. They're going to be really good at embeddings. They're going to be really good at pipelines in their backend to do embeddings and to rank data and do semantic understanding and be multimodal. They're going to be really good at kind of chain of thought to kind of rethink the question I give it. So if Perplexity decides to build for academic researchers, do they just eat you alive?
Perhaps. We will see if they do, right? The thing I want to say there is that, document understanding is such a long-standing and open question in machine learning itself. And there are, state-of-the-art approaches to doing that. And that's kind of what we also do. We take the state-of-the-art, we build it, and we tune it for research industry. So hopefully they don't.
So I think I've discovered something here. Let me try. I think what you're telling me is using any of these models by themselves or using a general purpose platform like Perplexity is not good for academic researchers because academic researchers not only want a summary, but they probably also want to read this stuff. They might want to extract data from this stuff. They might want to be specific as to what sources are being used. They might want a dashboard where they can go back to the answers in the documents.
You narrow it down from 10,000 papers to 500 papers or something like that?
Yes, in like multiple stages. But just to answer your question more specifically, reliability and accuracy really matters in this in science, right?
This is not just feedback for you. This is feedback for everybody who gives an AI pitch lately. Yeah, but the foundational model companies will be better than you. They'll just be better than you at that eventually, right? The unfortunate truth of GPT-7 and the next version of whatever Anthropic builds, they're going to get more accurate faster than you're going to get more accurate. Now, I'm not saying you don't have a product. I think where I was going was I'm trying to give you dressing. In other words, what's the application layer building? I think you need to share more about the experience of being the researcher and what qualms they have. And, okay, from a user interface perspective, here's where Perplexity or OpenAI will never care about this specific thing an academic researcher is going to want to do with the data and with their own research.
Is it the level of accuracy that would separate? Because if you're just doing, ChatGPT, whatever, like typically it'll give you some answers that are pretty good and some answers that are really not good. And you use your own judgment as to whether you're going to use that or not, right? But here, the level of accuracy probably has to be so much greater because it's academic level and research.
So yes, that
quality.
And also filtration and searchability really matters too, because imagine that each document is not just a flow of text that only a large language model can understand, but instead it's a structured format. It's like a table of contents, and that table columns are very tailored to the science papers, to research papers. So that's kind of what we provide too. Not only our machine learning skills, but also in-depth understanding of what matters within science.
Right. So that's something that you obviously have to bring up front, in terms of what could make you unique, however early you are.
I would say it's wrong. So you're going to do a chain of models. You're going to do a chain of queries. The way you get more specific, because you're not building your own models, right?
We are, just not large models.
So what are you building?
So computer vision models.
But why would you not just use whatever the big players are building?
Well, at a scale of the tens of thousands of papers, you want your own stuff, and you want to be able to tailor it to specifically the kind of papers you're working with.
Okay, maybe. Let me suggest this. I think there's a very compelling product in you building, because the specific thing is never going to be achieved on a technical basis unless your model is more specific or right, or accurate. And to me, if you're going to come here and pitch, I'm building the most accurate language model or small model or OCR model, and you go, great, that's a pure technical pitch. And you're going to raise purely on your ability to build very compelling models. And that's a startup, but it doesn't sound like that's what you're building. The other version of things is the applied use case, where you say, well, look, the way you actually achieve this over time is you don't rely on one model. We have teacher models, we have supervision models, we have multimodal models that can understand the table versus this versus that. We're going to fine tune all the models to understand science and academics more than the base models do themselves. We put all of this in a UI that understands academic researchers, where our UX is going to be specific such that they're going to get the more scientific and accurate answer. But it's when you
Which
say
one would
it's
you invest more into?
the second one, because I think it's, well, hold on, I don't know your background literally. So if you told me you were working at OpenAI and Anthropic and you were building large language models, I might go, oh yeah. And if I had $1 billion, because these companies require a lot of capital, then I go, great, he's going to build a competitor to OpenAI and Anthropic. Versus the other product, which I can believe more people are capable of building, so I would believe this a little bit more, is for scientists or academics, and it's an application layer with some novel methods in the background, but is more about being vertical specific than it is about the technical innovation. That doesn't mean the technology is not impressive and a key part of your story, but it means it's not the version of your pitch that I'm worried about is when you use words like accurate, especially if you're talking to more technically minded investors, they're going to go, I don't know if you're going to build a more accurate one. And I think what you mean, and you might correct me if I'm wrong, is you're creating a pipeline of machine learning models that will give you a more accurate answer over time, right?
That is right, yeah.
And so that's a different pitch, right? Because that's not you building a model that's more accurate. That's you building an application that is more accurate and more usable amongst this audience, which is still compelling, right? In my mind. For
There's so many corrections I want to make there, but that was great. Thank you. That was really good feedback.
Great to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to continue for the sake of time. Shall we meet our next founder up? Round of applause. Next founder up. What's your name?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Felix.
Felix, are you ready? You're going to have a minute to pitch us and tell us what you're building?
Yeah, let's do it.
What are you building?
All right, so to kick things off, I'm a chef. I own a restaurant on the Upper West Side called Il Violino. We've been in business for over 20 years, and I'm also a senior at Baruch studying computer information systems. About 2 years ago, I witnessed one of my customers go into anaphylactic shock, and it really left me just thinking about how we can solve this problem at restaurants, specifically mine, to provide customers with just an easier guest experience. So I came up with Chat with Menu. It's an app that allows you, really anyone, to find vetted menu options based on their personal needs. So they create a profile, they add their taste profile, their allergies, and based on the restaurant's ingredients, we can tell you what items to avoid or what things you can order. We built this mainly thinking about benefits for restaurants. So it's a B2B SaaS, and restaurants are the ones that are paying, and it's free for customers. In terms of benefits for the restaurants, we can provide them with analytics about the customers. We can promote.
About a minute. Just a round of applause for you. Don't worry.
How is this different from the waiter asking you, do you have any allergies?
Yeah, good question. So right now there's about 33 million people with food allergies, and a lot of these people actually avoid restaurants completely just because they feel like they have a burden. So these are people that have a dietary restriction or a health concern, and they have to go eat 3 times a day and ask the waiter 3 times a day, does this have nuts? And it becomes really uncomfortable, and it's not a inclusive dining experience, especially concerning that these are your health records. So this makes it easier for you to ask the questions to your phone instead of having to ask the waiter 10 times or burst out and let everybody know that you're allergic to peanuts. So it gives you more empowerment and it makes you feel more comfortable.
So I guess a little bit of a contrarian view. On the one hand, I'm for safe dining, but at the same time, if I'm a person with an allergy and I filled out my profile and I walked into the restaurant, now it's my new habit to go to restaurants. I'm more social, but I would still want to tell the waiter I have an allergy, because what if there was a system glitch? Like, did I really save that? Because I don't know. Like, I would still want that human confirmation that they got the message, and they wouldn't bring me something with the. Let
me couch that in some. My question that I think is causing her question. Where do you want people to interact with Chat with Menu? Am I doing this in my pre-dining experience? Am I doing this when I'm selecting a restaurant? Am I doing this after I've selected? Fair. Tell us a little bit more about the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. So actually something that we don't want to do is we don't want to eliminate the waiter. We believe that the waiter is an important part of the dining experience. We just want to take some stress and some extra work off of their plate and provide you with an easier solution so you can answer the questions without so much time. So you can do this in your pre-dining. Again, these customers would avoid your restaurants due to transparency. So if beforehand you can find out if there are dishes for you, then you arrive comfortable. And then at the dining room, you can use it as well.
What's your first moment where you want, like, is this usable today?
Yes,
It's an app?
chatwithmenu.com.
Okay, so and I go there, and when do you want me to go there today? I know in the future, everywhere. Right now, if I go there, what am I seeing?
You can sign in and create your profile. It's completely free, so you don't have to pay anything. And then you can just start chatting with the restaurants we have integrated.
And so I'm doing that so in pre-dining, it's like in restaurant selection is when I'm doing that.
Yeah, less of the selection, more the restaurant that you already know you're going to, because we don't offer every restaurant, just the ones that are integrated with us.
And are you selling this door to door to restaurants, or are you like going to like Open Table or, saying, can you add this into your system? Because that would be like a more scalable go to market.
We're actually working a lot with consulting companies that have restaurants that work directly with them. And these guys have like 70 restaurants under them, and they can easily integrate it into their POS system. So we do want to work with people like Square, Open Table, Toast to be able to.
It seems like a good add-on to that, however people would normally make their reservation, but in order for me to want to create a profile, I need to know that it's accepted at a very wide range of restaurants as opposed to just one establishment or two or three.
Yeah, the big issue there is transparency. Not all restaurants are as transparent as others, and this is very important, especially that we're dealing with people's lives. So the limited restaurants that we have, it's because we trust them and that they're constantly updating us as well. So the responsibility is also in the restaurant's hand.
Yeah. Well,
so I think there's an interesting part of this that got my brain going, and I'm not sure it's where your brain is about your business. Now, that's happened a lot tonight, so maybe I'm just on one today. So you mentioned like ingredients, and it was really interesting to me, the notion that like, you could know all the ingredients. And you mentioned, you mentioned it again, but I even thought of it when you mentioned ingredients and how you could interact with the menu, transparency. I thought this was like a really interesting AI solution to the notion of like, I thought you were going to say something like, it's not as easy as I'm allergic to shrimp, which I am allergic to shrimp. It's actually more complicated. And in the way that it's more complicated, restaurants should be willing to share more about what they're cooking with and how they're cooking. And consumers should be able to have a more honest conversation than they can, either on a website or with the waiter, or if they tried with the chef, about what they're consuming. And so we're building a platform that's focused on using AI. Such interesting, I would be like AI for restaurants, to allow consumers and restaurants to have a more honest conversation. Now, the moment is still interesting to me, right? Because I don't want you to try to compete with Yelp, but I was even thinking discovery, right? Like I only want things, this is gonna be a weird example. I only want to eat things cooked with someone's left hand. Now, there's no filter for that in the world. And let's imagine there would never be a filter. Let's imagine that's something that a restaurant doesn't want to reveal. But they would reveal it to an AI system that has a parameter of like, don't reveal our literal recipe, but have an honest conversation with the consumer about their needs. By the way, not just their allergies, but maybe also their preferences and their wants and their desires and their experimentations. Versus what you've described sounds like something that Square could implement in a day, which is like very simple AI on top of a menu. Now, again, I don't know the distance between what I've described and what you've described, but the reason mine came to mind as you described it, and why I think I would challenge you to like think about these things as if they're true for you as part of your pitch, is because this stuff beats the tar pittiness of this idea. So a tar pit, who knows what a tar pit startup is? Okay, we just need to like play this at the beginning of these shows. So the tar pit, the concept of the tar pit startup, a lot of people experience a pain in the world. I want to eat, I want to work out better, I want to date, all those things. And so many, especially young people, but people in general, will build startups in these spaces. And the unfortunate reality is there's not a lot of money chasing this. So we all have a pain point, but we're not willing to put as much money or pain in actually addressing it. And so tons of startups create this tar pit, this little mess. So like there are a million restaurant startups and everyone wants to build the next restaurant startup. And I'm sure there are going to be a lot of chat with menu style products. But when you are a chef, right? That's maybe why my brain went here. I was like, I took the chef's perspective. I don't cook at all, but I tried to take the chef's perspective. Like, what would be interesting for you? Well, again, to reveal your menu and have an honest conversation with someone about your menu. And by the way, for consumers, that would be really valuable as well, because again, you're revealing new information. I think that goes to that conversation.
I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical of this because I think restaurants are a low margin business. Yeah. So it's already hard to, obviously make it all work. And there's a lot of challenges. So if you give the consumer so much influence of like selecting the specific ingredients they want or they don't.
Just having a conversation about what's happening.
Yeah, no modifiers.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I just, but that kind of makes me like, it doesn't lend itself to AI too much, right? Like I feel like you want to, I may be wrong, but you have a restaurant, so you tell me, but I'm guessing there's like a standard dish that is available
so let me
all
talk
vegetarians
about the UX.
and for all people who are allergic to.
Let me correct myself. Right? So the idea would be that like, what's your restaurant's name again?
Il Violino.
Il Violino, through some moment, allows me to have an honest conversation that says, I'm allergic to shrimp, and today I'm looking for something more acidic and hot because I'm just in a mood. And I say that to the thing, and the thing responds back to me with, here are the dishes you can get, and this is a great restaurant for you to go to. And that's the sort of honest conversation. Now, I think the challenge in today's world is, and this is some of what you're saying, Il Violino does not have all the ingredients for every dish listed on the menu. They won't want to list that because that's revealing. And so the idea of AI structuring and safeguarding the restaurant's proprietary information, but still giving the consumer the opportunity to query it, that's what's interesting to me. No, I still don't know when it's going to happen and who's paying for it. Yeah, but that's what's interesting to me.
Exactly. A low margin business and who's paying for it, I think is the question.
And also when the consumer interfaces with it, because either I need to already find you or like have downloaded your app, both of which I think will not work. Yeah. Just as go-to-markets, there's so many startups.
It's a web app right now. So
yeah, I think that's going to be so hard. I get it. So you don't have to download it, but still it's challenging versus can you integrate? That's also challenging and also creates a dependency on who you're integrating with. Then the third option is be a competitor to Yelp, and that's challenging because then you have to compete with Yelp. So I don't have an answer to that, but I do think those are three distinct players you have to wrestle with or categories.
I think there's utility to something like this. That's what we're saying. I just don't know that it's necessarily a standalone business, but I think if you can create the right partnerships to give you the broadest distribution, I think it's a helpful addition to the experience for those that want it.
And then it becomes your pitch, right? Because I think maybe that's the challenge now is if that's the path you're going to go, I want you to say as part of your pitch, we're a B2B SaaS application or we're a B2B technology platform where restaurant platforms can use our API to access
something
very
like
unique,
that. That would work.
Yeah, but then that has to be your pitch, right? Then you have to take with its profile and you have to help me not imagine all the things I imagined if you're specifically going to be something where you're like going to try to sell only to other restaurant platforms. Because as soon as I go off of my imaginary trail, you might still have a compelling idea, but now you've got to drag me away from all the stuff I just imagined. That from a pitch perspective would be difficult.
Yeah. Anyways, I also just want to go back to the very first question I asked about like how is this different from, and really what it gets at is you have to convince me that it is a problem that people are not disclosing this information because that's not my lived experience. I feel like people are very open with this information, like, and to say they're and I don't know if those, whatever percentage you said of people who don't even go out to restaurants, that was kind of hard for me to embrace. So maybe that data comes from somewhere and maybe there's like a better way to tell that story because I wasn't sold on that aspect. I definitely think there's a useful addition to the dining experience here, but I don't know that you're going to get all those people who don't go to restaurants or, that they're not disclosing that they're allergic to something because it's kind of like a life and death issue. So they probably are if they are in that setting. So I don't know, but you may not need to go there if you just explain it this other way.
Well, I'd say too, I think that's why to mention more than just allergies and to get some of the things I mentioned of like, I'm in a mood for something that doesn't have steam blowing off of it. Because I think a lot of people, I mean, I do it anytime I'm looking at a menu, I am like, I don't want something hot or cold today, or I want something with comfort in it. And I'll try to look at the photos as a proxy for like, maybe the menu's not understandable. So maybe your thing's multimodal, understands both photo and text. Anyway, the point being like, because you went down, again, that allergy and that example you gave, which I think is a compelling example, but then my brain goes exactly where hers went, which is like, does the market validate only that? But by generalizing, like it's allergy, it's preference, it's smell, it's combinations of ingredients. Again, I think there's something really interesting in there. And again, I'm not surprised it's coming from a chef. And so, the where you put it is the question. So as you figure that out, because I think you're also early in that journey, then shove whatever you do learn about where you definitely want to be into your pitch.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
That was really good feedback. Thank you guys. That was really good feedback. Mainly, like what you said, it's not just for food allergies. We've thought about religion, diets, health concerns. There's really everybody eats a certain way, and we just want to help accommodate it without creating modifiers, without changing the recipe, just letting you know this is what you can have, this is what you would like on the menu based on what we know about you. And then what differentiates, I guess, me personally is as a chef, understanding that we can be transparent about all the ingredients, but there's other things like the preparation method, the time of marination that don't need to be disclosed that really make it your personal recipe that nobody else can duplicate. So easily we can give you the list of ingredients and tell you what is in it. And there's many cases for recently.
Would you want a chef to share that information with your app?
Yeah, so they would need to be able to update it on the fly also.
But also they would share their proprietary marination time and other things?
No, just the ingredients.
Why not that too?
Because that doesn't affect the way you eat it.
Okay, interesting.
So like you won't be allergic if it was marinated for 2 hours.
Oh, yeah. I guess the marination example might be very specific.
So in the case of something being fried in peanut oil, we need to know if it's peanut oil, but not how long it was fried in the peanut oil.
Fair. I guess lean more into this notion of I found the idea of like a chef reveals more to this app than it would to my face. Very compelling. So I totally get that marination was a bad example, but I like this whole like peanut oil or like we use a certain type of pan. Maybe there are people allergic to certain types of pans. I don't know. So I like that concept of it. For the sake of time, we'll have to move on. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Before we move to what I think is the last, is that the last?
I think it will be the last. Yeah.
I'm fascinated by how many businesses are getting up here and they've got such great core concepts to them. But we're in this moment where we're having to shift for a lot of people, like where exactly to put the pieces together. But I will say it's hard to pitch when you haven't figured some of this stuff out. So I want to give them credit. It's not
absolutely.
easy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree. I think it's, but this is why it's a conversation.
Yeah.
So I don't know, this is actually a very generous amount of time for conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Let's welcome that next founder up.
Yeah.
Awesome. What's your name?
Hirsch.
Hirsch, you're going to have a minute to tell us what you're building and get some feedback. You ready?
Sure, definitely.
What are you building?
So Katerina is an AI real estate agent. She handles the entirety of the transaction. So starting from listening to the user's preferences, understanding what they're looking for both qualitatively and quantitatively, and then running a search in your area, giving you suggestions, and then slowly walking you through the close. Right now, we're just handling rentals, and we soon want to do buy-sell as well. And when it comes to handling all the different parts of the transaction, for rentals, this means dealing with any third parties or service providers, so leasing offices, for example. So that means that Katerina works through phone call, email, and text message. Text message right now on the app. And so the thinking is that this is a much cleaner, more transparent, and faster way to kind of do a transaction. Because right now, when I go on Zillow, if I hit up like 10 units, maybe one agent will hit me back. And then the other issue is that a lot of agents don't really know what they're talking about in terms of region or
That's a minute.
Beautiful.
You want to finish that thought?
Yeah, what's up?
You want to finish that thought?
Yeah, let me think. What was I saying?
The agents won't necessarily want to.
Yeah, a lot of agents don't really know what they're talking about. You know, there's not really, I mean, look, you get the license, but that doesn't mean that you understand the market. And I feel like having a structured LLM is just a lot cleaner, especially going forward. And another issue I found is when it comes to scheduling, like especially in New York, right? The average turnover is, or time on market is like 28 days, 30 days. And whenever I apply, like I just got my unit in FIDI, I missed 3 or 4 before then. So it's like, you know, you put in your rental application, but the other guy gets in like 2 hours before, and I already got my checks, my deposit. And so that whole process is just really tedious and inefficient. And that's what we're really trying to fix.
I just want to kick this off with an analogy to like I come from the career and job search space.
Yeah.
And the way you're approaching this, it sounds like it's sitting on top of a lot of what exists in real estate.
Right.
Which provides a challenge that is going to be very real in job search, which is as job seekers use AI, companies will use AI. And as companies use AI, job seekers will use AI, which, by the way, mostly creates a mess. And we can get into why it's mostly a mess and not a good thing. And because it sounds like you're not trying to get into the the weeds. Like it sounds like you're saying my virtual agent can actually interface with listings and interact on your behalf.
Yeah.
It feels like the same thing a lot of the job search AI products are building, which is again this thing that creates more mess because it's making you efficient at activity, right? It's helping you send more applications and respond quicker to brokers. But is that good? It might be good for me as the first user of your app, but does the ecosystem still exist the same way in 3 months and 6 months?
Of course.
If we're just AI talking at each other.
100%. I think that there's different ways to approach this, right? So a lot of people talk about plugging AI into an existing website. So if this was like a partnership with a Compass or something like that, I would totally agree with what you're saying. But this is end-to-end consumer. So it's actually a lot cleaner going forward because there's less third-party interface that I have to do as the user. I don't have to deal with all these other parties because the AI can handle that. It's a one-stop solution.
But that's what's bad to me. Let me clarify what I mean bad. I don't mean your solution's bad. The philosophical AI doing these behaviors. Let me use the example of job search. You'll get what I mean. If I have a job search AI that does all of this on my behalf, what it's gonna do is it's gonna be really good at sending a volume of applications that are all customized, even if I might not be a fit, and it's gonna send noise into the system, right?
I see the confusion. Okay, so there's different stages of a deal, right? So this is a structured LLM with nodes. I'm not going to bore anyone. What I'm basically saying is that each stage of the deal is scheduled or predictable. So when you do a deal, generally you want to go see a walkthrough first, right? You want to see the unit before you put in a rental application because that's actually a commitment. And so this isn't going to be spam because sure, there might be a lot of applications to go walk through and see the unit, but that's how it is anyways. And agents can't even service all these requests at the first place, which is why the whole market is inefficient. So this makes that part of the market efficient. And it means that let's say that I put in an application 20 minutes before and we're on the same app, there's going to be less spam because you'll be notified. Versus if I ask my agent, the agent won't know because they have to go talk to the leasing office first. And that's where the confusion comes. So it actually is a lot more streamlined both on the application process and on the interview scheduling process. Or walkthrough, sorry.
How do you help the leasing office and the agent speak?
So the agent, what do you mean? There's no physical agent. It's just Katerina.
No, but I want to view the place.
Yep.
Who does that go to?
Okay, so let's say I text Katerina, right? Katerina will then email the leasing agent. Or
the leasing agent,
not the agent, the leasing office. I misspoke.
Got it. So it goes directly to the leasing office.
Right.
But the leasing office then has to have decided not to put an agent in front of them.
Well, why would we want an agent? Agents don't really do much.
Fair, but like I do think then you're getting to the incentive of the leasing. I'll pause for now.
Are you trying to displace the agents completely?
100%.
So, okay, so there's like a very big industry behavior change that, I think is hard. That's number one. Number two, what's the revenue model that you're envisioning for this?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, in terms of industry changes, I think it's pretty obvious that AI agents are here to stay. So I'm not concerned. I think that it's more about finding the right application that is consumer friendly and exciting. Now, in terms of revenue model, it's going to be based on wherever we're working. Now, I know that's not really an answer. Let me give you an example. So New York rental is 1 month, right? So we're going to keep that model. Now, if
clarify what you mean. You have to pay it.
Yeah, the commission for a New York rental unit is 1 month's rent is the commission. So we're going to keep the same business model. Now we'll do the same thing if it's, let's say if it's in Chicago and it's a flat fee for that building, it's $1,000, we'll keep that model. We're not looking to displace or change the revenue model whatsoever of the existing market.
So this is basically a broker fee that you're going to pay. So there's no SaaS fee to anybody?
No SaaS fee, no recurring monthly charge. It's just a one-time transaction fee, like you're dealing with a traditional agent.
And who is showing the property? Because I didn't quite understand. I understand the I guess Katerina will say that send the inquiry, but who's going in there with the key? Obviously, she's not going in.
I wish, but no, funny enough. I think there's a couple different ways to handle it, right? It depends on how the building is structured too. Now, if there's a lot of different applications for a larger building, the leasing office can either have someone internally that can do the actual showing, which I think is probably what's going to start first. I don't think that's the best way, but I'm not going to tell the leasing office how to do their business. I think the second approach is that someone just goes to the leasing office and says, hey, I am XYZ, I'm here to see the unit. They'll see the schedule and they'll let them up because realistically, most of these units, especially from our initial...
Pause you for a second.
Sure.
How early are in this journey?
In terms of the product?
Yeah.
Yeah, product iteration is almost complete.
How long have you been?
About a year. Yeah. Plan is to launch in the next few months.
Wait, let me, most apartments, I'm going to guess, don't have a leasing office attached to them.
Correct.
Now, let me tell you why I bring that up, though.
Sure.
I think it's still the same problem I'm mentioning that is manifesting in her question. You are approaching this, and I get why, in the clever AI agents will exist, and therefore if I sit my AI agent on top of this inefficient system, the system is going to be better for the person who I'm having as my customer.
Right.
The issue is you've baked so many assumptions into that. Let me name some of them that I think are worthwhile. One is that the leasing office will interface with you.
Yeah.
And will be more efficient in responding.
More efficient. We know that your AI bot will be more efficient in responding to them, but like, how are they going to respond to you? Those people exist on the other side at all times without an agent in front of them, and so causing some of the same mechanics that agents cause today because the AI bot's just talking to an inefficient agent.
Well, I don't think it's inefficient. I think that's an assumption too. I wouldn't say that it's inefficient.
Which part?
You just said that it's an inefficient chatbot. What I mean,
no, efficient chatbot talking to inefficient agent.
Yeah, but look, at the end of the day, if it's an agent in front or if it's someone in the leasing office, it's still a person.
Point is that, okay, let me give it to you this way. That means they all have to adopt your product.
I mean, they don't have to adopt anything. All they have to do is they get an email from Katerina and they respond. They don't have to download anything.
So then you're going to hide
go to the
it.
website.
Fair enough. Okay, so then let me give you...
No, it's not hidden. It's not hidden. It's meant to be seamless. It's not like I'm hiding in plain sight. This is just the easiest go-to-market in such a way that it's consumer-friendly for both sides. That's what it is.
I'm gonna can I ask how old you are?
Yeah, 25.
And you're a startup junkie, I can tell? You like startups? You like tech?
I mean, I like fintech, yeah.
Okay. You're approaching this problem like very much a first-time founder.
I mean, I think that's your opinion of it. I disagree.
It is my opinion. So let me tell you why.
Sure.
We're giving you a bunch of systemic reasons that this will not work as you're describing it.
Okay.
And you have an answer because I think you're trying to sell us the experience of today.
Okay.
But our point is not that the experience of today doesn't make some sense.
Yeah.
Does me as a renter having a chatbot do some work on my behalf make some amount of sense such that a founder could tackle the problem using a chatbot or using an AI agent? Yes. However, there's 1,000 things that your answer is, but my AI agent will solve it, where, no, we can imagine 1,000 ways that won't work. Hold on. As an example, when the leasing office gets the email from Katerina, the point we've been trying to make to you isn't just, is your chatbot friendly and communicative? It's that the leasing office is still a part of this.
Yeah.
Who's going to give the tour? Well, you might say, the leasing office. What if there isn't a leasing office? By the way, what did they rely on before? They relied on an agent. So is the agent there or not? Well, you might say, no, the agent doesn't need to be there anymore. They're going to save money. Okay, wait, so you did remove the agent. Are we talking to the leasing office still? By the way, when we're talking about going further down the pike, what inefficient conversation happens in general when you introduce an AI chatbot to what will eventually be their AI chatbot? Are these two chatbots talking at each other?
Okay, now you're just creating edge cases that are poking holes, but at the end of the day, that's a completely irrelevant conversation. I never mentioned a second AI chatbot. I think that you're looking for problems, but at the...
What's your name again?
Hirsch.
Hirsch. Slow down. Job search, let's go back to it. I think this is the useful proxy. Do you accept the premise that currently there are a lot of AI job search tools?
Sure, but that doesn't validate your point. You're just asking
I'm building
generally.
to it. Hirsch, I'm building to it. So you accept that premise?
Okay. Sure.
Do you accept the premise that there are now also a lot of AI tools helping hiring managers and recruiters?
Sure.
Okay. Do you accept the premise that I'm going to hand to you right now, that the way these two things are being built, they're actually going to cause in 3 to 6 months a problem because two people talking to each other this way are inefficient?
Here's what I'll say. I am not qualified whatsoever to speak on the job
search market.
So
the CEO of Greenhouse is a friend of mine who believes that's exactly what's going to happen in the next 3 to 6 months about job search.
Okay.
You have the same problem that I'm trying to talk to you about, and you're getting defensive because you're defending your startup. Let's just have the conversation. So when your AI agent either interfaces with ineffective humans or a changing industry where the industry will also adopt AI products. In all of these cases, that's what we're trying to learn more about. How will you solve for when it's no longer just StreetEasy and Zillow,
Sure,
but it's also you have Katerina and the leasing office has Nancy?
Okay, here's the question, right? Are we going to see real adoption for AI agents to plug into leasing offices? I think that whoever builds that has such a difficult scaling and go-to-market process themselves, and there's not much innovation in the real estate business. So I don't see that there's going to be a counterpart that is the plug into the leasing office. I think that if there was a second AI agent that wasn't consumer approach like mine, I think it would be someone who connects directly to the real estate brokerage. I think that's more likely as like a, someone who hands the deal off. I don't see any company right now who's going to build an AI agent for the actual leasing office, because that means that you have a very slow scaling process where you have to contact each individual building. And that's a shit show in itself. So I don't think that this is going to be as big of a problem as you're saying.
Got it.
So just to jump in my experience with any real estate tech or prop tech, anything sort of with that flavor, anyone who sets out to completely eliminate a part of that industry, it doesn't work.
Okay.
The better path to adoption is to make the job of the existing real estate agent, in this case, easier. So that you start with saving them on how many real estate agents they have to have, whatever that brokerage. So they're becoming more efficient. So you face less resistance. You're not trying to eliminate them. You're trying to make them better, give them more commission because they're going to be able to show more properties. They're going to be more, effective. And from the leasing office's perspective, there's still that point person that they're like, you're not just turning it upside down right away. So you make their job easier, they will be more likely to engage with you. And those are the ones that's the side of the industry that you need to have adopt you, because the consumer is kind of like transient, right?
Yeah.
Like they will rent, they maybe stay in that property for a period of time, maybe they renew, maybe they don't.
They don't want to pay a broker fee, right? And so they look for an AI product that only charges them $5.
But even if they did, like it's more like it's transactional. It's one at a time, depending on how long that person stays. So you may not have them as a follow-up user at all in the future. Maybe you have them again, but it's not like a consistent. The real estate agent and the leasing office, those are the ones that are constantly with inventory so you want to get their buy-in, then that becomes a much easier journey for you, especially because you're not eliminating the commission. So just get your...
I think there's a couple of issues with that. One, if you are plug and play into a large brokerage, then you are chopping up the commission, first of all. Second of all, I like looking at it and turning the industry on its head. Why? Because every time I've closed on a new unit in New York, I have a different agent, and I don't remember any of their names. After I close, I forget about them. There's only one Katerina. There's only one-stop shop. It's a completely different way of looking at this business.
How many times have you rented an apartment in New York?
4 or 5, something like that.
Over how many years?
A couple years. I've been here since I was 18, so it's been a while.
So 7 years-ish.
Sure.
So you rent an apartment every year?
Yeah, most years.
So I would say that may be representative of like a certain population group, but as you kind of progress in your life journey and you get more settled, you're probably not doing that as frequently. You may even buy a home. So there's probably like a limited group of population group that is doing that so frequently.
Yeah.
So to me, it's just, you can't count on that.
This is the initial go-to-market, right?
Right.
The initial go-to-market is 18 to 35.
Let me pause you for a second. Can we be less tense? Can you be less defensive?
No, I'm just explaining.
Okay, your answer's not going to be yes. Fine. I'll just give you my thoughts anyway. But I'm going to encourage you to loosen your shoulders a little bit. And I'm talking to you founder to founder. I'm not judging your idea. I'm talking to you founder to founder. The way you're approaching this, I actually think you need to take one of the two extremes. The one that integrates with the leasing houses and gets with all the listings today and understands the agents today and understands tours today, that's a product that's going to make some amount of money and succeed. But it's going to be B2B, or it's going to have a much more serious intention of getting B2B because it needs to make agents and leasing offices and all those brokers and all those stakeholders incentive aligned with it. Okay. And to skip that would be folly. So the B2B version of what you're describing would work and could work today. Then there's another pitch. The industry turning on its head. Now let me fake one. I'm not that into real estate, but let me just like tell you what it sounds like. It sounds like you start with an AI chatbot, but you imagine a world, you would tell me, where agents don't exist anymore. And AI agents take over the conversations that we're going to have today. In that version of the world, our AI agent, Katerina, and other AI agents are going to get really good at understanding listings without the need for a broker or for any of these directory websites.
Sure. Understand
How to arrange tours without the need for humans to be involved. In fact, we're going to integrate with Latch, and it's going to be easy to unlock.
Yeah.
And by the way, then once you're in the negotiation process, our AI agent is going to start to negotiate because you're going to be building on 2 apartments, and it's going to have some conversations for you. And in that world, by the way, buildings will love us because we will send volume, because we'll even search 6 months before you're ready because you won't have to do any of the work. So as a person who's lazy, your AI agent is acting on your behalf. That pitch that I just gave, that I think is probably somewhere in your head, will also work. It's the middle that you're sitting in right now, where every time she and I have asked you about the B2B version, you've been like, I'm not B2B, and that's not how the system works, and that's not how agents work, and that's not how
B2B.
people work.
Yeah, we're not
No,
B2B.
that's not my point. You're living here and answering here when you should be answering here. So when
That's
I
not
ask
true.
you,
That's not true, because you're asking B2B questions. I'm saying that I'm on that consumer side. And then you're pulling me back to the middle by bringing up greenhouse, other connecting to brokerages. I didn't start this B2B conversation. You're pulling me into the middle. I'm taking that side. This is a consumer app.
your business is taking that route though, right?
Yeah,
Because
I
disagree.
think what you're hearing from us is that we're just steering you away from the consumer side.
Yeah, well, that's the wrong approach. I think that this is
But that's why I asked you the question about greenhouse. Okay, so let me clarify why I asked you that question, then we're going to end this. And that's my right. It's because I also think the job search products are bad for job seekers right now. So it's not that I think, by the way, the idea is dumb or that it won't work for some amount of time.
It's okay. You won't hurt my feelings. I don't care.
The point is, for job seekers, because it is sitting on top of the existing employer system, where employers won't want to interface with, let's name the job search version of Katerina, Baterina. They won't want to deal with the consequences of Baterina.
That's unnecessary.
What's unnecessary?
Calling it Baterina is unnecessary.
Why?
But it's okay.
Why is it unnecessary? I don't understand.
It's all good. Continue.
Is that a name I'm not familiar with?
I don't know.
You can continue. I'm listening.
Okay. So the point is that they won't want to interface with Baterina. There's just no way that you're going to have employers who want the noise and the interactions to also be bad, as we were pointing out, at interfacing with it, right? And so when that happens, what happens? Recruiters, hiring managers will become defensive. They will put AI tools in front. They will block. They will crowd it out. They'll say, oh, I can't deal with all the things Baterina is coming to me with. There's just no way for me to do it. So ultimately, job seekers will either be talking AI into the wind, or they'll have to find alternative methods. And so you are right. You are approaching it from a consumer perspective. My questions come from the nature of, yeah, but what happens in 6 months when you're first successful? When you and other AI bots in the space, because more will exist, cause so much noise and so much disincentive in the system such that the system breaks. And rather than even just having an honest and maybe even lacking closure conversation, I think the thing you're trying to do is, no, here's why it's going to work anyway. And that's just not necessary. Thank you so much for sharing. Good luck with it.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Okay, now let's takeaways.
You start.
I think all of these had a similar core concept that I got excited about, but didn't put the pieces together for us. Almost surprisingly how much they followed each other in pattern in terms of, oh, that chef thing is interesting, or the career thing is interesting, or the LLM for academic research is interesting. And I think most of it has to do with bringing a lot more of the assumptions baked into your concept into your pitch, because then I understand why you've made a lot of the choices you've made. Mm-hmm. So as an example, the LLM for academic researchers, I think what he eventually did with us as we asked him questions was to provide context. What's the pain that they're experiencing that leads you to believe a verticalized version of perplexity? I know he'll disagree that that's what it is, but I actually think that's a compelling product. But I think that's compelling because I started to imagine, okay, what does an academic researcher deal with that brings him to building this? It's not just, oh, here's a solution and here's kind of the problem. It's here's the world the problem, the solution. And world building is maybe the way I'll couch that is show me a little bit of the stakeholders and their interactions, either with products or themselves, and that helps me understand every choice you've made.
Yeah, I think one takeaway for me from it's not every single presentation, but a few of them lacked specificity.
Yeah.
Like this is the one piece of feedback I actually give probably most frequently to founders who are pitching the idea. There's always confusion between trying to be as broad as possible. Oh, this could apply to all sorts of situations, versus actually being very specific as to who is the target population and naming those, that's why I asked a couple times, like, who are those individuals, users, people, whatever term you use. I think it's very important to say who you're talking about, because then it immediately starts painting a picture in the listener's mind. Okay, I think I know maybe something about that. I can imagine that. And then everything else flows and kind of falls into place very differently than if you're just trying to like, what, who? And this is actually an exercise that a lot of companies do when they start selling, is like who's your target customer? Who's your ideal customer profile? Which is really, really critical. You have to get very specific as to what they look like, because it's not just who may have a problem or who you may do something useful for, but who is the party with this problem that is so urgent that they want to pay you yesterday. Yep, and that is kind of where I think some of these pitches could have been like really fine-tuned. And it could have been also helpful just even at the very early stages of the companies. Like, who are you imagining and who is engaging with this? So painting that picture always helps.
100% agree. And I think if they're lacking, or if they fear committing to a person or a population, saying here's who we're starting with, but being specific about that, because to your point, half of the value of that is that it helps you understand. It's not just to define the audience, it's to define the audience such that I might understand something. Last thing on a takeaway basis I get to do, since I'm the host of the show, I'm going to pick on the last founder. Questions come from places not of venture, of wanting to understand a path, not necessarily disqualify the present. In other words, that idea makes sense at its highest level. If someone built AI for real estate or for consumers in real estate tomorrow, it makes total sense. Questions are an invitation to a conversation, and you decide as a founder where you want to take that. Like a politician, you can redirect, or you can engage in the intellectual conversation. And when you're this early, it's okay to have some confusion or offer multiple hypotheses or to answer poorly. But I would tell every founder the thing to do more than anything is to not get defensive about whether you will win.
Yeah. And
that, I think, is the ultimate thing that can hold some people back. The questions are an invitation. They're mostly not a challenge.
It's a missed opportunity to actually think through some things that maybe you, because of your conviction, would not see.
100% agreed. Well, Anna, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for your insights and your feedback. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's great to be on the show.
Excellent. Shout out also to all the brave founders who got up on stage. It's not easy. One more shout out to the Feedback Loop crew. We do this every Tuesday. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music has podcasts for some reason. Your favorite podcasting platform, your subscribe, like, comments, etc. mean a whole lot. Your support is why we do this thing. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.